pirate ships were not ruled by kings. They were ruled by votes. That single fact changes everything you think you know about pirate life. Power at sea did not always come from strength or reputation. Sometimes it came from a raised hand in a cramped, lantern-lit space, where every man understood exactly what was at stake. On a pirate ship, democracy was dangerous. When supplies ran low, when a voyage failed, when suspicion spread, the crew did not wait for courts or commands. They voted, and those votes were not symbolic. They were final. One decision could end a career, another could end a life. Every pirate knew the unspoken truth. A vote was never just about leadership. It was about survival. Who could be trusted? Who had become a liability? Who was worth keeping alive when the ship could no longer carry everyone? These moments did not arrive with ceremony. They emerged from tension, whispered arguments, quiet resentment, hunger, fear. By the time a vote was called, the outcome had already begun to shape itself in men's minds. And when the count was finished, there was no appeal. No one voted lightly. No one voted without consequence. Because once the crew decided, the ship moved on, lighter, quieter, and bound by shared guilt. The sea did not judge them. History barely recorded them. But every man who raised his hand remembered exactly what he chose. This is the story of how a single vote could separate survival from silence. How collective decision became collective responsibility. And how, on a pirate ship, democracy could be more ruthless than any captain's order. Because when everyone decides, no one escapes blame. Votes on a pirate ship were never about fairness. They were about pressure. Every man aboard understood the rules long before a hand was raised. Pirate democracy existed because authority at sea was fragile. Captains were elected, quartermasters balanced power, and crews reserved the right to remove anyone who threatened profit or survival. This system looked equal on paper. In reality, it magnified fear. The vote usually came after weeks of tension, supplies running low, a voyage failing, an accusation whispered too often to ignore. No one wanted to be the first to speak. The first voice defined the direction. Once doubt gained a shape, it spread quickly. A single complaint could turn into consensus by nightfall. The sailor remembered how these moments formed. Conversations stopped when certain men approached. Glances lingered. Laughter faded. The ship felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls were listening. When a vote was finally called, it happened below deck. Lanterns were lowered. Weapons stayed visible. Not as threats, as reminders. Every man present knew that this decision would not end with words. The accused rarely defended themselves. Arguing meant desperation. Silence meant dignity. Either way, the outcome depended less on truth than momentum. On who had allies. On who had been useful recently. On who now represented risk. Once the count was complete, the crew did not celebrate. They did not argue. They simply accepted the result. Shared responsibility made guilt easier to carry. The sailor understood something most men avoided thinking about. A vote did not protect the crew from violence. It distributed it. No single man carried blame. Everyone did. And that made the decision final. The ship moved forward because it had to, because turning back meant confronting what they had agreed to do. On a pirate ship, democracy was not mercy. It was efficiency. The vote ended without sound. No cheering. No argument. Just the quiet scrape of boots against wood as men shifted their weight, suddenly aware of what they had agreed to. On a pirate ship, silence after a vote was heavier than shouting. It meant the decision was complete. The accused pirate did not resist. He had seen this before. Everyone had. Resistance only delayed the inevitable and made it messier. The crew avoided his eyes, not out of mercy, but because eye contact made responsibility harder to ignore. The sailor felt the shift immediately. The ship itself seemed to pause, as if waiting for the crew to follow through. Votes were not suggestions. They were commitments, and a commitment unfulfilled invited chaos. Weapons were lifted, not rushed. This was procedure, not rage. The men moved carefully, deliberately. No one wanted to be remembered as the one who acted too eagerly. Guilt was easier to carry when shared evenly. The accused was escorted toward the edge of the pirate ship. The sea below was calm, indifferent. It did not rise to meet him. It did not protest. That made it worse. The sailor stood among the crew, motionless. His vote, or lack of it, no longer mattered. The outcome existed now, separate from individual intent. This was the cruel efficiency of collective decision. As the moment stretched, something unsettling became clear. The vote had not removed danger. It had relocated it. Every man aboard understood that next time, the circle could tighten around someone else. Alliances would shift. Memories would be rewritten. The system survived by consuming uncertainty. When it was done, the ship felt lighter. Not physically, psychologically. The tension that had poisoned the air dissolved, replaced by something colder. Acceptance. The pirate ship sailed on. No record kept. No ceremony held. Only the knowledge that survival here was not about innocence but alignment. An alignment could change overnight. By morning, the pirate ship behaved as if balance had been restored. Sails were adjusted. Rations distributed. Orders followed without resistance. The absence left behind by the vote blended quickly into routine. On a pirate ship, survival demanded efficiency. Grief was considered a luxury. The sailor noticed how quickly men adapted. A hammock was rehung. Tools were redistributed. Space closed in where one presence had vanished. The ship did not remember names. It remembered weight and function. As long as those remained intact, the voyage continued. Yet something subtle had changed. Men spoke less freely. Laughter returned, but thinner, measured. Every interaction now carried an invisible calculation. Who had voted first? Who had hesitated? Who had stayed silent? Memory became currency, and alliances shifted quietly beneath the surface. The system had worked, but at a cost. The sailor understood the paradox. Pirate democracy prevented mutiny, but it also normalized removal. It taught men that survival depended on staying aligned with the majority. Right and wrong mattered less than timing. At night, vigilance deepened. Weapons were checked more often. Hammocks swayed with lighter sleep. Even the calmest men adjusted their posture, aware that consensus could turn again. The vote had resolved tension, but it had also reminded everyone how quickly protection could vanish. The pirate captain said nothing. He didn't need to. Authority now rested with the collective. Control had been reinforced without command. The ship functioned because fear had been redistributed evenly. The sailor lay awake, listening to the familiar creak of wood and rope. He realized that the most dangerous thing about the vote was not the decision itself, but how normal it had become. This was the real cost. Not death, but adaptation. Because once a crew learns that survival can be decided by raised hands, every relationship becomes provisional. Every mistake carries weight. Every silence is measured. The pirate ship sailed smoothly onward. But beneath the calm, the lesson remained. The vote was never spoken about again. That was how pirate ships survived, by burying decisions under routine. By pretending consensus erased consequence. By letting the sea absorb what men could not. The sailor understood the final truth too late to ignore it. The vote had not decided who was guilty. It had decided who was inconvenient. On a pirate ship, survival was not about morality. It was about alignment. Stay useful. Stay quiet. Stay predictable. The moment a man disrupted balance, through weakness, dissent, or misfortune, the system corrected itself. Democracy made that correction feel justified. Every man had raised his hand or lowered it. Every man shared responsibility. That was the brilliance and the cruelty of the system. No captain to blame. No executioner to hate. Only collective agreement. And that agreement could be summoned again. The sailor lay in his hammock that night, staring into darkness, listening to the ship breathe. He realized that no amount of loyalty could protect him forever. One injury, one mistake, one unlucky moment, and the same lantern-lit circle would form again. This was the cost of freedom at sea. Pirates escaped kings, laws, and empires, but they replaced them with something colder. A system where survival depended on remaining acceptable to the group, where belonging was conditional, where mercy was voted on. By morning, the ship sailed as it always had. Men laughed. Orders were followed. The ocean remained indifferent. But something fundamental had shifted. Every man now understood how thin the line was between crew member and liability. So remember this when pirate life is romanticized. The most powerful weapon on a pirate ship was not a blade or a pistol. It was consensus. And once the crew learned that lesson, everyone slept knowing one thing. The next vote could be about them.